Hi Hayley, thanks for
Hi, Debbie.
having the chat with me today. Obviously it's been a bit of a year for everyone, but also for us in our roles. So I just wondered if you could remind me about what it is you do at the Let.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Hayley. I'm Head of Communications at New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership. So we are government funded and are responsible for delivering economic growth across all of Norfolk and Suffolk.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like a challenge, but also an interesting job. I imagine there's lots of great people you get to work with.
Yeah, really interesting. But yes, definitely been a very strange year. We anticipated, I think, the EU exit would be the biggest challenge for our sort of businesses across the two counties this year. And we were slightly wrong, like everybody, I think.
Oh, yeah, I think we all were. So talk to me a little bit about pre-COVID. What events would kind of look like for you, or, you know, face-to-face engagement would kind of look like for you at the Let?
We had, I guess, possibly face-to-face engagement at the two extremes. So we would hold relatively small, I'm talking 20, 30, 35 people, kind of strategy consultation events. We would often join with the chambers of commerce in both counties and essentially go kind of on tour when we had sort of strategies or projects we were putting together, and we'd invite businesses to join us for fairly standard business networking, a cup of tea, hear from us, you know, small table discussions about what we were doing. Those were always really effective. But we had the challenge of where do you go and what time do you go and all that sort of thing. But at the other end of the scale, which was much newer to us, was I guess you kind of call them trade shows. So really big exhibitions and shows, which were part of our inward investment and development work. So looking at taking the presence of our key sectors overseas and around the UK and showcasing those at big trade shows, so big energy sector events. In fact, probably the last big scale physical event we did was called Horror Carver, which is a hospitality and catering and food and drink event in Amsterdam. And we took local food producers over to Amsterdam and had a big stand, actually the Department of International Trade. We were their stand showcasing 10 or 12 local food and drink producers to essentially wholesalers and caterers, purchasers in Amsterdam. So kind of at two ends of the scale. And I guess, like a lot of people, things just happened at the wrong time for us. So that event in Amsterdam was supposed to be the first of 4 or 5 big international events that we were planning. And I suppose the first sign of the challenge of the pandemic came with one in February called Mobile World Congress, which was a big tech event in Barcelona. Similarly, we were taking local tech, AI, app development companies over to Barcelona and part funding that and supporting them through the whole process of getting results from the show and coming back. And that was meant to be mid-February. And I guess a couple of weeks before we actually decided not to go, the event was eventually pulled. We'd already decided with feedback that a lot of the big players weren't going to be there. Facebook weren't going, companies like Huawei, the sort of big Chinese companies, weren't going to be there. Google weren't going to be there. And suddenly you think, okay, so the outcomes aren't going to be quite what we thought. Eventually the event was pulled anyway. And then shortly after that, a big event that we had planned in the south of France called MIPIM, which is a real estate and property showcase, one of the world's biggest real estate events, was also then pulled completely. I mean, that's about a sort of 18,000 people trade show. So by the time, I suppose, we got to late February last year and those were being cancelled, and then you start to think, okay, this is going to look a little bit different, and those things are not going to happen.
Did any of those diversify in any ways, or did they just flat out decide not to run anything?
They did. So MIPIM, the real estate event, have held a couple of online kind of leadership conference kind of things. Interestingly, they've rolled tickets. They were supposed to be hosting again in South France. They'd originally put it for June this year, have now cancelled that, hope to do something smaller scale in September, but hope to be back March 22.
But
it'll be interesting. I still think it'll be interesting to see if that looks the same, if an 18,000 people trade show happens even in March 22, but we wait to see. But we hope they do, because I think there's value in them. But I think it's going to be a challenging market to get that spend and that optimism back.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been, yeah, it has been quite a challenging year for you as well, you know, the usual activity that you'd be kind of putting on. So I know that you did something amazing in 2020. So talk to me a little bit about that, the Restart Festival.
Yeah, so we have never hosted a business festival. Like I say, we tended to do quite small consultant sort of strategy events. We attended a lot of other people's, but certainly never organised our own. Although we'd always supported the Norfolk Enterprise Festival, which was a physical festival event, and we were their main sponsor for a couple of years. And I guess last year we realised we were doing a lot to support businesses. We were putting in useful information on our websites, our social media channels, sending it to partners, getting involved as much as we could. But we wanted to try and do something that would deliver something more tangible, I suppose, more direct to businesses. And our feedback through the intelligence we get from our business advisors and other partners was that people were in crisis mode. Businesses were struggling, they were frightened and worried, but they didn't have a huge amount of time to invest in looking at what was out there to help them.
Yeah.
So we decided to put on a 2-day virtual festival.
Okay.
Which we live streamed. So we built green screen studios in our office in Norwich.
Okay.
On the research park. We had 3 green screen studios built to be able to live cast. And the reason we did that was there was loads of brilliant business support webinars. If you're a business, there was loads of information you could access online about what was out there to help you, well-being, HR, marketing. There's lots of resource online. But we, I guess, wanted to bring some of that together, but really deliver something with a different feel. And we'd always liked that festival concept, that it's a bit more lighthearted, that you stay for the whole day, you get different ebbs and flows of feeling through the day. So we worked with a local event company to do that. And the reason we had the green screen was we wanted to be able to have in-house presenters. So sort of presenters they were at a table or standing up. And the green screen meant we could make it look a bit like a festival. We had graphics designed with sort of illustrations of marquees, different zones, as if you would on a festival map, even though it was all virtual. So we had hosts for each session every day. So the host was the same throughout and would welcome the speakers, a bit like you'd get at a live event. And we thought that's what's missing from virtual events. It wasn't just the 45-minute presentation. It had interviews. The studios also, because at the time the COVID restrictions did allow some people in the same place, allowed for sort of socially distanced panel discussions. So we had a couple of socially distanced presentations and panel discussions, which I think the element of it being a bit hybrid. So some was virtual, as in people literally presenting like we are from their homes. Some people were in the studio, some were a mix of both. Posed some challenges, but I think actually allowed us to produce something that looked and felt different. It was all free. It was all completely free to access, free to sign up. You literally just had to give an email address and we sent you the links on the day. It was actually live cast through our website and through our social media on the day. So we are making it as accessible to local businesses as possible. They didn't have to tell us anything about themselves. They didn't have to sign up to mailing lists. Literally just come on here on this day at this time and watch. You didn't have to get bookings for different sessions. The whole thing was just live cast as one stream, so that you could dip in and out. You could leave it running while you did other work, because people told us that was kind of what they wanted. They didn't want to book a whole afternoon. That was never going to happen for them. So like all of us, it was how people can fit it in. They could pause it, they could rewatch. And it allowed us then to splice all that content up. And it's all now available on an app and on our website and through other partners as well. So it actually produced for us about 32 hours.
Wow.
Business support content.
That's
which
brilliant.
We would never, ever, ever have even probably thought about doing, let alone actually managed to achieve. So it was a big undertaking, but it delivered something that I think, and I certainly hope, and the feedback we had was good, that it looked and felt different to what else was out there, which was what we were trying to do.
Yeah, I understand that some of the challenges with virtual events are obviously some people, which I guess is where your panels in the studio worked really well, because if you're not able to present that well to a screen, but you're one of the ones in the studio surrounded by people having those debates, it probably felt a lot more comfortable for them. But with the people at home, do you think that you got more panelists and more kind of presenters because it wasn't such a drain on their time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, we approached all 3 of our local universities in the region, so
Yeah.
the UEA, NUA and the University of Suffolk, to ask if they could help put together sessions with their sort of academics or their business teams. And we had really positive feedback. And actually, one of the chaps who opened the first day for us from the University of Suffolk said I could do 9:30 to 10. He had his first cohort of students, because it was the end of September, actually his first year students at an online session at 10. So he said, well, I can do 9:30 till 5 to 10. And as long as I can be done at 5 to 10, I mean, there's no way he would have been able to do it. So it definitely was less time commitment from those people. The fact also, I think for quite a lot of, we had a lot of business speakers. We tried to encourage that peer-to-peer learning and getting SMEs to talk about their own experience, their own skills for others to learn from. All of those, if they wanted it, have access to the video of their session. A lot of them have used them on their own websites for their own use, and we were quite happy for them to do that. So there's also real value in people in, give us some time, and actually you then have content back, which you wouldn't again get if it was if it was a live event. So it had its pros and cons. Yeah, I definitely think it opened the audience for the speakers, but also for our audience, because we cover all of Norfolk and Suffolk, and we always have the challenge: what venue do you choose? What day do you do it on? How far are people going to have to drive, and how long are they going to stay for? And actually the fact that people could, like I say, dip in and out, they could just leave it running. And we know a lot, the feedback from a few people was they tuned in for a particular session, left it running, and then actually went, cool, that thing later was really interesting, but I probably wouldn't have booked to watch that bit. And that was kind of what we wanted. And that's what you get at live events, don't you? You go to a conference, you stay all day. Like I say, it has ebbs and flows, bits you're interested in, different breakouts and things like that. And we certainly wanted to give it that feeling of that you would get from a live event if you went and spent all day at a festival.
We found the same with our mental health open up event. We built it with the intention of people coming along to the section that might resonate with them best. And we were getting messages from people surprised that they'd actually ended up staying all day because they were finding the content valuable for them, which I'm guessing was the same for you with this festival as well.
Yeah, the feedback was good. And what we tried to do as well was put short bits. So short sessions. So we might have had, I think we had, for example, for our marketing piece, we had 60 minutes, but it was 3 speakers. So 3 20-minute, really short, sharp bits, so that people could just dip in if that was what they wanted. If you just want to watch 20 minutes, that's fine. If you found that 20 minutes useful, then brilliant.
Yeah, really good. Were you happy with the attendance? Were you happy with how many people came along for the 2 days?
We were. We had about 620 unique viewers each day across the 2 live streams. Obviously we had no idea really what we were aiming for. We'd never done it before.
No.
But we certainly have never put on a physical event and had 600 people. And I can't see that with the geographical challenges, obviously, that we have covering such a big region. I can't see that we ever would put on something and get that many people in the same place at the same time. So yeah, really, really positive. The thing also for us, because like I say, people just signed up with an email. We made a sort of separate mailing address for people who wanted the links to it, that a lot of those people were people who we don't engage with normally.
Okay, so new really audiences.
Good. Yeah, and we wanted to reach out to those who were really struggling, the sort of micro businesses, small businesses, solo entrepreneurs who really needed that support. And we know that we got a lot more of that market than possibly we would with our more traditional kind of strategic events that we would have done with the Chamber of Commerce, which had a real value, but they weren't what this was intended to be. So yeah, I definitely think it reached new people, both speakers and audience for us.
Was there like a section of the day that was kind of, the flagship part where people tuned in the most or got the most out of one element in particular?
Yeah, the things people fed back to us that they watched and really liked, and we could see obviously the sort of spikes in viewing were, I suppose, were what we thought they'd be, the really practical sessions. So we had a piece about how business leaders can look after themselves before they look after their business. So real practical tips around time management, sleep, nutrition, that kind of thing. So it's a slightly different steer on well-being. We had, like I mentioned, some really short and sharp marketing sessions, which were really well received. We had some bits as well. We tried to find out about greening your business, so how to build back greener, which was talking about checking your supply chains and things you can do as an SME. And so there are things, I suppose, which we anticipated that delivered, what I suppose the way I always described it to potential speakers when I speak to them, I'd like to think people have got a notebook and they write down 5 or 6 things and they can go away and do those tomorrow in their business. Really useful takeaway stuff. And those were definitely, the feedback was definitely, those were really well received. People were just overwhelmed with news and information, you know, overwhelmed with support coming at them, but they didn't quite know which way to look at it. So those really easy to digest, free, accessible, you know, spend half an hour and learn about this bits. And we know people are still watching those.
Yeah.
You know, some of them we've reused some of that content, we've repurposed some, so have other partners. And, you know, we know that people are still watching some of those. There was a really practical session about bringing staff back from furlough, not the kind of technicality ins and outs, but how do you make a workplace that's fair and consistent? And what does employment law say about how you can manage some of that process, which is new to everyone. None of us had heard the word furlough, let alone the concept, and then bringing staff back from it. So those kind of bits people are still using. And that's, I suppose, part of what we wanted to do, was create a legacy of things that, some of which were timeless, some were only of their time. Like I say, this was end of September. Well, actually, the world looked a bit different end of September to what it does now, which was, I suppose, another of the challenges of putting content together without quite knowing what you were going to be able to tell people. But yeah, we've certainly made stuff we think that has lasted and has had value beyond just those 2 days.
Really good. It sounds like it was really informative for the viewers as well, which is brilliant. It was clearly a huge success. Is it something that you're going to consider redoing in the future, maybe in a different way, or what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think the concept of it, so the bringing partners together to talk about all the things that are out there for businesses, the brilliant business environment we have here, and bringing those partners into one place, we would definitely look to do again. We would put on something on that kind of setup, you know, the kind of virtual setup again, because I think even looking forward, I still think virtual events for an organisation like us are here to stay.
Yeah. Because
of the geographical challenges, even for our own staff, we have staff that live all the way across Norfolk and Suffolk. So even getting our own team in one place is really difficult. So I think virtual events for us have a place to stay. I think in the business landscape, they do. I do think people miss networking and meeting face to face. Of course they do, we all do. But I think here's 45 minutes of information that can help you with really practical support, I think there will be a role going forward for those kind of things. So yeah, I definitely think it will become something we reuse. I would hope that by September this year you can certainly do something hybrid, if not physical completely. Hard to say, we thought that last year, but yeah, I think it does have value. And I think to be able to bring all those partners into one place, we'd never even really thought about doing, certainly never tried to do. So I think there's definitely value in that for us, of being able to put all of that into one package that people can literally just log in and watch.
So I guess in a really difficult and challenging year for everyone, it's allowed you to kind of deliver something in a very different way to what you normally would have, and also take some of those positives and make sure that you continue them when hopefully the world goes back to normal.
Yeah, like I said, virtual events for us are here to stay. The trade show element, the sort of bigger events, will be interesting to see, and we still wait and see whether those come back in a format. But for us, whether they're still the right plan of action to take, because a lot of organisations, I think there's a role for them, but we've not lost business through not being at them. Actually, our investment teams, our innovation teams have been busier than ever before.
Yeah.
So I suppose we would have to look even more carefully at whether they're the right thing to do, or whether we do fewer of them or slightly different ones. Some of them I think may never come back to the format they were, because the costs involved will be so prohibitive for a lot of potential exhibitors now, more than ever before. But for us, I think it's also given us a view that events, in whatever way you look at it, if you talk about sort of engagement of people kind of thing, we've certainly been using more as part of our kind of sort of communications suite of tools. So we'd always looked at them, I think, like a lot of organisations, as something slightly separate that sat alone.
Yeah.
And actually now, when we're putting together campaigns for different things, webinars or online events for all of them are part of it, because they're easier to do. There's no real cost to us to put them together. And we've seen that if you have, for some of the things we do that are quite targeted, but if you can put together a 1 hour webinar, we have the expertise in our team for people to host it and speak at it. If you get 15 businesses to join it that are actually interested, there's massive value in that.
Yeah.
More value in that than something that you've got 100 people at who are just coming because it's a thing to go to. So we're certainly putting on more, well, I suppose more webinars. We would never have put on webinars, but certainly more as part of the sort of campaigns we've got going forward. And we know we're planning some of various campaigns soon, but I think we've changed slightly, and a lot of places will be the same, that we now look at them as part of the suite of things we offer, not as a separate entity on their own, which has been quite a slightly interesting change for us. And I think they've definitely shown a value, because they can be much smaller and much more targeted, and that has a real value for it. That really works.
Good. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me about this. I really appreciate it. And obviously it's just brilliant to hear all the wonderful things that you're doing for the Norfolk and Suffolk businesses. I'm sure it means the world to them. And I'm sure they're hopeful that you will continue to do so.
We hope to see some of them face to face at some point.
Yeah, I think we all do. I think we all hope that they'll be face to face as well as some of the virtual things. And as you said earlier, I think hybrid is probably the future from now on, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. For us, definitely. I think it makes complete sense. Even if you look at it geographically, what venue would you choose where that many people can access the information? And there isn't one. Doing it from their own home or their own office is actually a much more efficient way of doing it. So yeah, it's definitely posed challenges, but it's certainly raised those opportunities. We would never have, I suppose, like most places, never have taken the decision to say we deliver all our events online, because it would have seemed crazy. But actually going ahead, it will certainly be the bigger chunk of what we deliver, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Really interesting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.